All right, we're about to pull back the curtain on a declassified government program that really, it just tore up the rule book on ethics, on law, and frankly, on basic human decency. This is the story of Operation Midnight Climax, and it all starts in a place you would never, ever expect. Take a look at this building. This is 225 Chestnut Street in San Francisco. It looks pretty normal, right? Just another apartment in the neighborhood. But for almost a decade, this place was ground zero for one of the CIA's most bizarre and, frankly, twisted clandestine experiments. So that's the big question, isn't it? What on earth was the CIA doing inside this apartment? Well, the answer involves a cocktail of drugs, sex, and a staggering disregard for the American citizens who were lured right through its front door. Now, to really get why something this crazy happened, you have to rewind to the mid-1950s. The Cold War was just raging, and this intense paranoia was gripping the U.S. intelligence community. The CIA was absolutely convinced that the Soviets had cracked mind control, and they were desperate to catch up, no matter what it took. And all that desperation gave birth to this sprawling, top-secret monster of a program known as MKUltra. Its mission was chillingly straightforward: figure out how to control the human mind, using chemicals, using interrogation, on actual human subjects, often people who had no idea they were even part of an experiment. Buried deep inside MKUltra was an even more shocking subproject, and that's our focus today: Operation Midnight Climax. Its goal was to run so-called field tests. They wanted to use LSD and sex to see if they could pry secrets out of the minds of everyday, unsuspecting Americans. So you have to wonder, who would even be willing to run an operation this dark? And how did it even work? Well, that brings us to the guy in charge of it all. Meet George Hunter White. This guy was a tough, hard-drinking narcotics officer who was, get this, loaned to the CIA specifically for this project. He was the perfect man for a job that demanded, well, a complete absence of a moral compass. He's the one who set up these secret safehouses in both San Francisco and New York. And if you want to know what was going on in his head, just listen to his own words, discovered years later in his journal. He didn't see this as some grim duty. For him, it was all a game. He wrote, "I toiled wholeheartedly because it was fun, fun, fun." Unbelievable! So let's see what this fun actually looked like in practice. We're going to go inside the safe house and break down the horrifying mechanics of how Operation Midnight Climax worked. The apartment itself was cleverly disguised. It was decked out to look like some kind of hip bachelor's den. French posters on the walls, really nice furniture, all of it designed to make someone feel comfortable, to lower their guard. But hidden behind that inviting decor, it was a surveillance lab. The whole method was just so clinical, so predatory. Step 1, the CIA hired prostitutes to bring men back to the apartment. Step 2, once they were inside, their drinks were secretly spiked with LSD. And step 3, the whole time, George Hunter White was sitting in a hidden room, probably sipping a martini, just watching it all unfold behind a two-way mirror. So who were these human guinea pigs? In the CIA's own cold calculus, they were expendable. They were people who, if they ever tried to tell their story, nobody would believe them anyway. We're talking about sailors on shore leave, drifters, really just any ordinary guy who was out looking for a good time and walked into the wrong trap. Now, after all that money, all that effort, and all those ruined lives, you'd think they got some incredible intelligence out of this, right? Well, you'd be wrong. The whole thing was a spectacular failure. Let's look at how this dark chapter finally started to fall apart. After nearly a decade of these sordid experiments, the CIA had learned next to nothing. And the reason was actually pretty simple. LSD is completely unpredictable. They couldn't control it, they couldn't direct it, and that made it totally useless for interrogation or any kind of real mind control. And this right here perfectly captures the chaos. There was just no rhyme or reason to how people reacted. Some guys became absolutely terrified. Others would just get giggly and silly. And then some would stumble out of the apartment totally disoriented, wandering the streets of San Francisco, wondering why the sidewalk looked like it was breathing. So as you can see on this timeline, the project itself was quietly shut down in 1963. But the story doesn't stop there, because in 1973, the CIA director ordered a massive cover-up, destroying most of the records related to MKUltra. It wasn't until the mid-70s, when a congressional investigation called the Church Committee started digging, that the American public finally started to learn the truth. So when all is said and done, what's the big takeaway here? What does this ugly stain on American history really teach us about what happens when things operate in the shadows? Well, look at this. On the left, you have the official justification. This was all about national security, fighting the communist threat. But then you look at the reality. On the right, there is zero evidence the Soviets were doing anything even close to this. This wasn't about responding to a threat. This was about unchecked power, left alone in the dark, creating its own monsters. When you boil it all down, the conclusion is just stark. It's unavoidable. In the name of protecting the country, a powerful arm of the United States government started to view its own people not as citizens to be protected, but as disposable lab rats for its most dangerous and unethical experiments. And in the end, the story of Operation Midnight Climax is a really powerful and chilling reminder of this one central idea. When a government operates in total secrecy, the first thing it loses isn't accountability or money, it's humanity. Which leaves us with this final critical question. We know from the story that a sense of morality can vanish almost instantly. But what else gets lost when the lights go out and there's no one watching? That right there is the real lasting price of secrecy.